Good day, fellow champions of inclusion. I am AA Ron, and this is the Inclusive Dad podcast where we explore inclusion and make it practical. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join me in exploring ways we can create a more inclusive world together. You are important, you matter, and you can make a difference. Today, my guest is Jenn Fredericks. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Why don't you just start us off by just telling us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am a mother, wife, and a resilience practitioner and resilience coach. What led me to this line of work has been 3 decades of living with a chronic illness. I have chronic kidney disease and it's being treated by kidney transplants. So I'm blessed to have had 2, and I keeping that second one going. And also, I've been really inspired by my daughter, who's a courageous ray of light. She was diagnosed with a low-grade brain tumor when she was 7, and she's 16 now. And with all of that comes a lot of, let's say, exclusionary feelings and experiences. And so that's one reason I'm really excited to be here on the Inclusive Dad podcast, because I do believe everyone belongs and has a right to belong. And I hope that my resilience practitioner training and my coaching can help patients and caregivers of patients with chronic illness feel that they are included and valued and belong here.
Thank you. So I had an aunt who she actually has passed away now, but she had kidney disease, and she had 2 transplants. The first one was my uncle, her brother, gave his kidney for her to use, and then her body rejected it. I don't remember how long it lasted, and then she ended up getting another transplant that lasted a few years at least. I don't know, 5 or 10 years, and then she ended up passing away. But yeah, so my aunt she also had 2 kidney transplants. So
it's so interesting. I was just talking with someone last evening about it, and it's so normal for me. But they're like, "You've had 2 kidney transplants." I'm like, "Yeah," and I said, "But I know they're real transplants, and I don't want to downgrade that for anyone who is a kidney warrior, and I am as well. But I also know that I have options for some other treatments, ones that wouldn't give me as great a quality of life as I have, but that would keep me here on Earth." And so sometimes I think like, oh, the real the real transplants are, the heart and the lung and all of that. I mean, they are all real, don't get me wrong. But maybe that's one coping mechanism of mine that just helps me keep things kind of grounded. But I appreciate you sharing that story with me. My first kidney transplant was when I was 16, and my dad was my donor, and it rejected for probably a month, and they kept trying different treatments and turned it, and I kept it for 18 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it got me through those long life, those milestones, graduating high school, graduating college, meeting my husband, buying a house, adopting our daughter. And then when she was 4, that kidney was really tired. And so I was lucky enough to get this. My husband's fraternal twin brother is my donor. Yeah. So my husband sometimes I just say my husband's brother or twin brother is my donor. And then people will be like, "What's wrong with your husband? Is he a jerk or what?" But it's because they have different blood types.
Gotcha.
And so, and so this one's about 13 years out and treating me very well.
Yeah. I remember she did like dialysis before, I think it's called, before she had the kidney transplants. Is that still kind of the other option for treatment then?
Yeah, it is. And it's really hard on the body. I did dialysis for 6 months before each of my transplants, and it keeps you going. It filters out the extra water and the toxins of your blood and everything. But you have this remarkable roller coaster of energy and how you feel. And it's just not the best long-term. I believe it's not the best long-term treatment, especially for me. But it definitely is there. There's hemodialysis, which is the one where they filter your blood. And you usually go a couple of times a week to a center and sit there for 3 to 4 hours. And I believe there have been innovations where you can do hemodialysis at home too. I'm not an expert on that because I'm
Okay.
living with
Yep.
transplant. But then there's also peritoneal dialysis, which is it's more complicated to describe, but it's like using your peritoneal cavity around your stomach, and there's fluids that go in and out and help clean and all of those great things. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. What is your definition of inclusion?
Oh, I know in my bones that everyone wants to be seen, heard, and valued. And when we're able to do that, I believe we can build an inclusive community and environment for people.
Right.
It's a pretty simple one, like to say. It's a much harder one to put into practice. But I truly believe that, those are the needs of humans. And when we can offer them that, offer ourselves that, we build a more inclusive community.
Yeah. So you said you had your first kidney transplant when you were 16. Is that what you said?
I did, yeah.
So how long before that were you already having like your kidney not working and correctly and stuff?
Well, it took quite a long time to get a diagnosis. In middle school, I was just kind of sickly. I went from walking pneumonia, strep, mono, and just we couldn't get a handle on getting my health back. And we lived in a large metropolitan area, and they diagnosed me with chronic fatigue syndrome. And I don't know, I had some sort of interesting solution that I had to take once a day, and it didn't really help. And we ended up moving to a small town in upstate New York for my dad's job. And the local pediatrician took some blood, and then he's like, your cholesterol is, I forget exactly the number, but I think it was over 200. And I was, a freshman in high school, barely 100 pounds. He's like, that's not right.
Right.
And so I was connected with Buffalo Children's Hospital, and they were my care team and treatment team and transplant center. So it was a long go of it. I would say once I was diagnosed, probably 6 months from diagnosis to treatment, because we were able to work up someone in my family to be a donor. So I didn't need to be on the wait list for a kidney. And as soon as I should say it probably was more like 9 months, because I was on dialysis for 6 months before I could get my transplant from my dad. They're just very thorough, which is great, in working with a living donor to ensure that the choice they're making is what's best for themselves as well as the recipient.
Yep.
And so that was really, really important.
Yeah. I just remember that one thing is since my uncle gave my aunt his kidney, like he wasn't supposed to ride motorcycles or something after that, I think, because you only have one kidney or something like that. I don't know if that's normal or if that was.
I don't know. I know by that time my dad had given up his motorcycle. So but then he bought another one when we So he did not give up riding motorcycles.
I guess maybe, I don't know if that was actually a rule, or I don't know why that came up, but I was like,
well, it makes sense.
I guess it kind of makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. Although one thing I do want to mention is that if you consider being a living donor, you can do that for someone in your life, but you can also do that altruistically. And I met a gentleman who's actually the CEO of the National Kidney Foundation of Wisconsin, and he altruistically donated his kidney, and it started a donation chain of 4 people.
Okay.
So him kickstarting that
Sure.
gave 4 people the gift of life. And if you think about it, actually it gave them 8 people the gift of life, because 8 people who are on the waiting list 4 people who are on the waiting list also were then able to receive a deceased donor's kidney. So I forget why I was telling that story, but I met him, and it was just lovely to hear how you can, and I know because of my donors, but you can live such a healthy life with one kidney. And you also then can be considered if you need a kidney in the future.
Okay.
They take that into consideration if you need to be placed on the donor waiting list. My dad is 78 now, and completely healthy and not needing anything. My brother-in-law is in his late 40s with 2 young children and living a completely active life doing anything that, they really want to do, and
Yeah.
haven't felt any negative repercussions from donating. So I just will leave that here for your listeners, that it's a wonderful way to give the gift of life. If you aren't comfortable with that, at least signing your donor card.
For sure. Yeah. How is school for your daughter? Is she included in stuff, or how does that work? Oh wow,
Oh
that was
man.
kind of a sigh.
Oh man. School is rough, It's rough. Right now it's really rough because she's going through another kind of comorbidity along with her diagnosis, that we're trying to get figured out, which keeps her from being able to be at school. So when you can't be at school to build relationships, the relationships that you have can deteriorate, and then you have to put that much more energy into it to rebuild. She loves school. She doesn't actually love all of the, classes, but she likes being in school. She's a very social being, and so having her need to be at home is sad for us because we want her to be out there and flourish. And she has one of those smiles that when she walks in the room, she heals people. And so we want her to be able to share that and have a quote unquote normal teenage life, even with all the things that she's managing. So I would say when she can get to school, it's good. Now that she's in high school, I think there are so many kids and they're all so busy that they don't lock in on someone who might be a little different or not there as much. She has really enjoyed her high school experience when she can get there the last 2 years. I will say, she went to a private school that had elementary and middle in one building. I would say some of those years were really tough. There's maybe the one kid who is having pain of their own and doesn't know how to manage that. And, I'm not excusing the behavior, but I can understand where that's coming from. But then to have it directed at your child for whatever reason, maybe because she was the girl with a brain tumor and everyone there knew, and so she got the special treat. I don't know why. Like I can, philosophize on why all day, and I try not to, but it was rough. And, we did a lot of work with her to build her self-confidence, to help her know that what was coming at her was more about the other person than it was about her. She works very closely with a wonderful psychologist. I'm grateful that I've gotten into the work that I do because I now have tools that I can help reinforce what the psychologist says. I can do it here at home. I have some other things that maybe I ask her to do that her care team may not. But it was a really bad bullying situation. One of those that when I saw the kid, it took all that I had to not go up and say, hey, listen,
Right.
Let's get this figured out. But again, one thing that I live my life by is that I believe fear is born of love. And so sometimes people can't get right to the love like I can. And they share how much they care about things or how much they're worried or how much they're hurting from a place of aggression or hateful words. And underneath, I believe it's coming from a place of wanting to be seen, heard, and valued, a place of being loved and accepted. And I really try to see that in everyone. But like I said, sometimes it was hard when the kid walked by me.
Right.
But yeah, school is tough, man. I don't remember it being that tough. I remember not feeling a part of a lot of things at school.
Right.
And I don't know if that was put upon myself for some reason or if it actually was happening. But I found my niche and made some great friends. One of my daughter's best friends is a daughter of a woman I went to high school with. And we were great friends, which is just such a cool experience. And actually, my husband and that woman's husband have known each other since kindergarten and been friends. So they got married, we got married.
There you go.
And now our daughters are in high school together and wonderful friends. So
That's awesome. Do you want to talk a little bit about what a resilience practitioner and prosilience coach is and what you do?
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to. Well, so I started about 7 years ago as a general professional and personal development coach, so a life coach.
Yep.
And people kept asking me, how are you so resilient? Because, I had just been laid off of my 16-year marketing career, where one, I worked at Harley Davidson, which is funny. We were talking about motorcycles. And I didn't know. They're like, how did you have this corporate job, this event job where you're traveling all the time and you have your own health issues and your daughter has these health issues and you have a smile on your face? How do you do it? And I didn't really know. It just was me. So as I was studying more about growth and personal development, I also started researching about resilience and compassion fatigue. I'm particularly interested in that because of how much time I spend in hospitals and seeing those frontline healthcare workers and how do they do it? And I ran across compassion resilience and then a book about prosilience or proactive resilience, how to build your resilience during turbulent times and in the turbulent world. And so I read it. It was written by a woman named Linda Hoops, who's an organizational and industrial psychologist, and she studied resilience for 30 years. So I'm reading this book, and I'm marveling at the fact that this woman has been following me around since I was 16 years old. It was just so weird reading her framework and how they came to the framework of how to build your resilience. And it was what I'd been doing, and I didn't know. So now I had this language. I had this framework that I could say to people, this is how you can build your resilience, so that these long marathons with chronic illness or caregiving for someone with chronic illness, you can not fall down and have to pick yourself back up, or maybe even just not fall down so far and use all of your energy that's left to pull yourself back up to your resilient baseline of where you want to live life from. So I really love partnering with healthcare organizations, systems, nonprofits, and foundations, have them bring me in to speak to their community of caregivers or patients about the 4 building blocks of prosilience. And I usually focus on one in particular, managing your personal energy, because our energy is what fuels our resilience. We could have the strongest resilience muscles, which is another building block. But if we don't have the energy to fuel them, they aren't going to be much help to us. And what I have found is with caregivers, not only working with them, but being one, is when we don't have that energy, it's very difficult to do anything else. Right. So I love coming in and giving workshops about how to, one, educate about the four personal energies: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And then we take a look at, okay, which ones are lower right now? Which ones might have you might have a boost in? Where are the leaks? How can we plug them? And then how can you work on this and weave this into your daily life so it becomes like muscle memory, so that you're always fueling your energy so that you can engage your resilience muscles, use a strategy to meet the challenge, and even know how to self-regulate and calm yourself in those challenging situations so that you don't lose all your energy and fall down and have to pick yourself back up. So that's one way I share the information about building resilience and being proactive about it. Another way is I work one-on-one with caregivers and patients and talk about all the different building blocks, and we apply it to their specific case in life. And I also love writing. I share my story in anthologies as well as speaking on stages. So the prosilience coach piece is that exactly. It's coaching people on how to build their proactive resilience. Let's take a look at the 4 building blocks. Where are you at in the 4 building blocks? And how can we strengthen where you might feel there's a bit of a deficit so that you have everything you need to. I really love to say to people, you don't have to wait until things are better to live better. And so I believe this is a tool to help you get there.
Yeah, that's great. So you kind of said, I think you said that you were already, people were commenting on your resilience and you were kind of already doing some stuff. Like what do you think like in your growing up, or met your family or whatever, kind of got you to that place? What was in your life that kind of got you there?
Well, reflecting back, I identify myself as a realistic optimist. So, one of the building blocks is choosing a strategy to meet challenges. And there are 3 ways that you can meet it based on this framework, which is to change the situation. Chronic health, you can do that a little bit, but not much,
Mhm.
right? Reframe the situation, look at it as something in a different way, or accept and adapt. So I believe with my realistic optimist kind of foundation that I accept that this is what's happening in life. I can't really change this piece of it.
Mhm.
So how am I going to adapt so that I can live the life that I want to under the conditions? And so I had been doing that, I think, my entire life. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, receiving the gift of life a second time gives you a perspective on life.
Yeah.
You know, I was born once. I loved it. Had a great childhood. I was quote unquote born again, you know, when I was 16 and given the opportunity to live and experience so many things, and that someone would so selflessly give of themselves
Right.
to help me do that. It does change my lens at which I look at life through.
Right.
So I think that has really helped. And one of the other building blocks is looking at your resilience muscles. And we have 7 of those. And in this framework, everyone was born with all 7. Now, when we're in times of turbulence, we might access certain ones more easily that don't drain our energy as much. And then there are some that maybe don't support us because they're difficult for us. That muscle hasn't been worked and it's harder for us to engage.
Mhm.
So I do have an online assessment where people can go and take a look at where the levels of their resilience muscles are. And then there's a debrief we do where we look at those specific muscles and we come up with an action plan or a workout plan so that you can sort of build your resilience muscles horizontal bandwidth so that you have access to all of them equally if you can,
Mhm.
to help you more easily move through challenge.
Yeah, it's interesting. What part has faith played in been in your journey?
Sure. That's great because I was talking about spiritual energy, right?
Yep.
So I would say as I was younger, I wasn't religious as much as I was spiritual. So just that belief that there's something outside of myself that has some guiding force or something that, you know, here's a story. So this was before I did eventually convert to Catholicism and got married in the Catholic Church, and my daughter went to a Catholic school and everything. But before, I was, like I said, I was more spiritual. I went with my friends to their different places of faith worship. Um, I was probably 3.5 weeks into my long rejection of my first kidney. So 16 at the Children's Hospital. I couldn't sleep at night. I was never comfortable. I was not feeling well. I just remember those nights were long and cold.
Right.
And tiring. Now during the day, I could sleep all I wanted for
Yeah.
some reason. It was super weird. But so my kidney was working just enough where I still needed to get up several times a night and go to the restroom.
Mhm.
IV pole and all. I remember going to the restroom and coming back and just feeling weary about what was going on and the uncertainty and not knowing what the next step was. And so I knelt on my bed. And I remember saying, God, I'm not sure if this is the right thing right now. Just give me a sign. Give me a sign and I'll keep fighting for this kidney. If not, I think it's time to move on to the next option.
Right.
So I got into bed and I was like thinking, well, that was really weird. I don't normally pray like that. Normally it was in my head or in my heart. And all of a sudden, my hospital room felt like my grandma who had passed. It felt like my grandma. It felt like her home. It was warm. It was comforting. I lay down in the hospital bed and I slept the entire night. And I would say, I don't know, a half a week later or so, my numbers started to improve and the kidney function changed and the rejection was taken care of. And I had that kidney for 18 years.
Hmm.
So there is something.
Yeah.
Like, I don't prescribe to anyone else what it is or how to live with or communicate or celebrate or worship, but there is something greater than ourselves that can help us in our life, that can give us hope, that can help guide us. And I also intuitive coach, so I do know that there's things beyond me that can help us here on earth.
Yeah. It's great. What's intuitive coaching?
So, great question. I had no idea when I started, but it is basically like downloads or whispers that I get that don't feel like thoughts. Like I know that they aren't my own thought of a question or an observation or a thread that's going through someone's story that gets pulled out for me that I might be able to share with them as an observation that could help them change their habit in life or whatnot. And it's super weird because when it first started happening, I believe we all have access to our own intuition, things that we don't know how we know them, but we do. And so that's intuitive coaching. And sometimes I will get those whispers and sometimes I won't.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful reminder in a good way that we aren't all in control and that there are some truths that are out there that are accessible to us.
Yeah. I've had a couple coaches or person, we had a session and then she sent me a message 2 days later, like she's like, I woke up in the middle of the night and I had this intuitive hit and she told me and I was like, holy cow, that's crazy. Like
Yeah.
And then another one, I was talking to the person, she's actually, have you heard about human design?
Yes, I'm a projector. I actually am a human design reader as well as like a side hobby fun.
I'm a 2/4 projector.
I'm a 6/2 projector with a splenic authority.
I have a splenic authority also.
So that is like the natural, like intuitive hits. Like that's a lot where where that can come from.
Yeah.
It's the most natural, like instinctual way to get decisions, sort of like a deer in the woods, right? We have that. Like all of a sudden you're like a deer in the woods eating grass and then you're like, anyway. Human design is very interesting.
I was talking to a human design practitioner that I had seen online. We were talking in person actually at Podfest in Florida, and she's like, there's a couple of times we were talking. She's like, are you open to for me saying something? And she's like, I just got this hit, and both times she said something, I was like, holy cow, that's kind of crazy what you're
I love it
picking up right now. So yeah.
Well, and one more thing on that is I love that she asked you permission if she could share as a projector, because even as projectors, we're here to guide and give wisdom, yet if we aren't invited or recognized, we can end up feeling set aside and not included.
Exactly. But yeah, I found out about human design a little over a year ago, and it's been like life changing, because just all those things of like, hey, I knew something was different and you don't know why, so you're trying to like fit in and all this stuff, and they're like, nope, I need to have my life look a little differently to be able to function correctly and stuff. And it's like, okay,
exactly.
Sweet.
Remember earlier in our conversation when I said there was always a part of me, it wasn't shown to me that I didn't fit in. People didn't treat me that way, but there was something. I think it's kind of landed there. I think it comes from maybe my undefined will center, and I've done a lot of work to build my own confidence and know that I belong and know of my value and show up that way. And I, as projectors, and then we can move on if you'd like, but as projectors, we're here to be recognized and invited. That's our strategy. And that was really hard for me as I started building my business a year ago on my own after I left the coaching company I was with. Because I was like, oh, am I just supposed to sit here and wait for people to come and find me? Like, that's not it. That doesn't feel good. And I ran across someone who shared be the invitation, be the lighthouse, shine. People will recognize you for the wisdom that you have and then invite you to guide them.
Yes. Yeah. That's great. Wow. This has been fun.
It has. I love
places I didn't know where it was going. But I'm like, hey, maybe my intuition was like, you should ask her if she's heard of human design.
Exactly. Yeah, totally.
Earlier I was thinking on the resilience piece. I mean, I'm
Mhm.
obviously male, so we don't talk about any of this stuff. In like
Yeah.
your experience, like what's the difference between like maybe men or fathers and
Mhm.
mothers like talking about resilience if they have a child they're a caregiver for, like how they experience it or how they process it, maybe.
Right. And I mean, everyone's different too,
That's true. Yep.
right? There are some females that don't want to discuss,
Yep.
and there's some
True.
males that like are effusive.
Yeah.
I can't really use my husband as a case study, right? Because he lives in my world of
Right.
let's breathe, let's ground.
Yep.
How does that make you feel?
Right. Yep.
But I can share that I was very lucky to, well, I'm not going to say that. I'm going to own my value. I worked very hard to be able to go and share a workshop with a group of caregivers of pediatric cancer patients. And in the room, there was a mix of mothers and fathers, male and female caregivers, and they equally shared.
Hmm.
So I guess what I'd say there is that I always meet the person where they're at. And I think sometimes my intuition can help me know the avenue with which to get someone to maybe go a little deeper and
Sure.
share, or the right powerful question comes up for me to ask. But it's important to allow people to be where they are and determine how they want to share and what they think would help them in the moment and not push. And I think when you do that, everyone is more open
Yeah.
to exploring more about how to live their life in a way that helps them heal so that they can be the best mother, father, caregiver
Yeah.
to their loved ones. But again, I was just taken aback at how beautifully some of the dads shared their experience and wanting to help themselves, but at the same time help the others in the room, because we were all at different journey
Hmm.
places of the journey when we were in that room. And then I had two dads come up to me throughout. It was a weekend retreat. I
Okay.
had two dads come up to me afterwards and like pull me aside and want to have a deeper conversation.
Hmm.
And it was, hugs were given, and it was just a beautiful healing experience. So I guess what I would invite your listeners to do, if they aren't sure when and if they're ready to share, is get curious about where they may want to be experiencing life a little differently,
Hmm.
and then find someone that can help them feel
Right.
safe, feel seen, heard, and valued in a space so that they can really build their resilience, allow things to go that aren't serving them anymore.
Hmm.
Because when we're able to do that work for ourselves, it's actually the most important work we can do, because
Absolutely.
it ripples out to everyone.
Yeah. For sure. What is one tip you can share to help our listeners be more inclusive today? So just something they can start today to be more inclusive.
Well, I just mentioned it. Be curious.
Yeah.
When we can start to change our judgment into curiosity, I think it opens up a whole new world of how we can relate to others and communicate with others and help others feel that they are included.
Yeah. That's great. What's the best place for everybody to connect with you?
Well, I'd love to share two options.
Sure.
My website, prosiliencecoach.com. I probably should have picked an easier thing to spell, but it's prosilience.com. The other thing is, if this conversation like really sparked something in you, and you have a question or you have something that you're struggling with right now and you'd like to get some, a tip on it specifically to you, I invite you to text me my phone number. Just text my phone number, 414-235-7973. And I'd love to respond with a tip like specifically for you, because we all are at different, parts of our journey. We all need different support. And that's one thing I always coach and interact with people, not on the what, but on the who.
Yeah, that's great. there anything else you want to talk about? I feel like we talked about a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we certainly did, even down the rabbit hole of
Yeah.
human design. And I think that goes along with, my inclusion tip is we can be curious about things in life and not have them define us or be like, yes, that's exactly what I believe. But the more that we can open ourselves up to learning new things and speaking with others in a way of learning to, speaking to understand, communicating to understand is super important. And I think that's really it. That's why I love guesting, because I get to hear everyone else's, ideas and thoughts and share mine as well.
Yeah. Ready for the last question?
Oh my gosh, let's see. Yeah.
Do you like spam lunch meat? Yes or no?
Mm-mm.
No?
I like the idea of it.
You like the idea?
I like the idea of it, of like, as soon as I see it, I'm like, ooh, if I was on a Hawaiian island, I would like to eat spam. But
Yep.
I would say no. Bologna, yes. Spam, no.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Why bologna? Yes.
Well, I don't know. I'm thinking of lower quality meats, and bologna comes to mind. And
Sure.
so I can eat bologna, especially fried bologna, but
Yep.
I don't know that I could. Oh, you know what? Maybe have I ever tried spam? That's the question. Maybe I should be curious
There you go.
and try some.
I mean, usually if we eat it, we take it and slice it and then fry it up. And fry it up so it's a little crispy.
So you don't just like scoop it from the can with a spoon?
No.
Oh, so
I
that's
mean, the only ways I've ever really eaten it, I guess, are we slice it and fry it and have it with like pancakes. Or, I mean, when I was younger, my mom would like cut it into like cubes and throw it in like a macaroni salad. That's basically the only ways I've ever had it, that I've had it. So, but yeah, if you slice it not super thin, but I don't know, quarter inch, put it on in the pan and like get a little bit crispy on each side, it's not bad.
I'm going to be curious about that, and I'm going to try to have my family curious about it.
But I mean, yeah, we used to have fried bologna too when I was younger, so I know what you're talking about. You had to like cut it, otherwise it made a bowl.
Yeah. Yeah. Like there's the four slices.
Yeah.
It's the same. We'd have that, and we'd have fried cheese a lot too, which is really good. Or SOS, the chipped beef and gravy on toast.
Yep.
That was really good.
That, yeah. So yeah, I asked that question because I live in Austin, Minnesota, where the Spam Museum is located. So, and this is where Hormel is located, and they make spam here and have the Spam Museum. So, if you next time you come to Minnesota, if you want to visit the Spam Museum, it's pretty cool.
Okay, yeah, I will do that, and I'll get curious about whether or not I just automatically don't think I like it. I think I should try it.
I mean, to me, it's interesting that you're okay with fried bologna, but not spam, because in my mind, it's almost the same, basically the same thing. I mean, I haven't looked at the ingredients list, but it seems very similar to me.
Yeah, that's where I'm.
What about Braunschweiger?
Oh, I don't even know what that is.
That to me is weird because I think you do. It's some kind of similar product, but it's in like a log, and then my dad would like scoop it out and put it on bread or something.
Okay, yeah.
So that seems a little bit.
It seems like living in Milwaukee, I should know that. But I'm going to be completely transparent.
I think Braunschweiger is like ground liver, possibly.
Yeah, probably. I'm a transplant to Wisconsin. So I actually was born in Ohio, then lived in Texas, then lived in upstate New York, then moved to Wisconsin. So while I've been here the longest, I definitely don't identify as a hardcore like Milwaukeean / German, settler. So I don't eat the liver.
I don't eat the Braunschweiger. I've never tried. I just remember my dad when I was a kid. He would get it once in a while and he would eat it. I've not tried that. I was like, that doesn't look good to me.
It sounds like something that my husband's family would bring to when we have like Easter. They'll bring different things. Like, an uncle this time is bringing something that I don't, Fleischwurst or something. Like, I don't know what that is. But feel free to bring it. I'm sure someone will eat it. They're of Hungarian descent, and so most likely a lot of those, even blood sausage, that kind of thing.
Yeah, no.
Like, no, I don't know. I'm more English, Welsh, French, like.
Yeah,
but
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
I am very excited to be here. I had a wonderful conversation. I hope to keep in touch and just follow what you're doing with inclusivity. It's beautiful, and keep on going.
Thank you. To those listening, thank you for allowing me to be part of your journey. It is truly an honor. Please join the podcast newsletter by clicking on the link in the episode description to keep up with the latest episodes. Together, we can make the world more inclusive. Until next time, stay empowered and be a champion for inclusion.